You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. And be sure to smash that like button. Mason Taylor was named third team.
Mason Taylor!
Preseason All-SEC by the league's coaches. Might just have something to prove. A guy who knows a lot about playing the position in the SEC. Former number 18 himself, a national champion. Guy will be joining Charles Handegriff on Eagle 98.1 Game Day postgame show this season. He is Richard Dickson. Rich, it's great to talk to you, man. Thanks so much for the time. I hope you were doing awesome.
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited about the season. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Hey, let me just start with Taylor. When you hear that preseason, just from a player's perspective, maybe fans and media make too much out of it, but third team preseason all conference for Mason Taylor seems a little low. How would you react to that as a player?
It's a joke. I mean, the guy is a freak. He's probably, in my mind, the best tight end to come through. Since I played, he's got all the tools you need. He's a prototypical tight end in today's NFL. He's a pass catcher. He can block okay. He's not going to be a third down guy that you're going to run behind, but he's a guy that's a B-plus blocker. Him being third team to me is a joke. I mean, I was a third team. I think he's way better than I was.
Hey, he's up to – what did you weigh, by the way, by the time you got to be a senior?
I was 6'3", 245, 248. I was in that range, and he's 6'5", 255. I mean,
that's where they have him listed.
He's got all he needs. I mean, yeah, and he's filled out. He's a guy that is what I say is an NFL tight end. He's a 6'5" guy. He's 250. He can hold his own at the line, but he's also an elite pass catcher.
What would it take, Rich, for his block? Because you said he's a B or B plus blocker. What would it take? I mean, I see 6'5", 255, and I go, well, that's a lot bigger. I mean, Rich, when he was a freshman, he was 6'4", 230 is about what he was listed at. So he's grown a couple inches and gained 25 pounds. Where could he improve as a blocker?
That's a mindset. He's got to be an angry guy. You got to have a lot of internal aggression to be a blocker. I was a guy that when I came into LSU, I was 6'3", 235. Tommy Moffitt wouldn't let me leave the weight room without drinking 3 protein shakes, trying to get my weight up when I was younger. But it's a mindset. I was always undersized, but I was angry. I wanted to beat those guys, and that's where I don't know how much he was asked to play in a blocking role in high school. You got to build that mindset. I was a defensive guy in high school. I was aggressive, wanted to go after people. But once you have the size, I know he has the strength. I talked to some of the weight room guys. He's a guy that busts his butt in the weight room. But it's a mindset. He's got to want to block, and he's got to be aggressive and go after him.
Do you think – so Mason Taylor is the guy that is the prototype, right? You've described that. The next guy closest to that, Rich, was Mac Markway.
Yeah.
Now he's transferred. You're left with 2 really freakishly athletic young guys who I want to talk about in a minute, but given that you don't have that guy, what does that mean for your depth and what you do at the position?
It's going to be, I was thinking about that earlier. They don't have, when I played, we brought in Keith Zinger. Keith Zinger was a bona fide blocker. He was, 6'4", 6'5", 265. He was going to beat up guys on the DN. And when it was a power run situation, we swapped places. They don't have that guy right now. I wouldn't be surprised if you see another tackle come in, like Weston Davis come in a heavy run situation. The guy they're going to have to move down because after Mason Taylor's the best blocking tight end they have. You go down the line, Pimpton, great athlete, freak. I've watched all the highlights of him catching balls so far this camp, but he's not a blocker. And, Green as a freshman, you're not going to expect him to be in the blocking game. I watched 3 Zachary high school football games last year. He played wide receiver. He never played tight end.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, it's going to have to be a situation like when I played, we had Doug Blanchard would come in. He's an offensive guard, but they had an extra jersey on the sideline. They would throw on him right before in a running situation.
Who was the guy? That was Les Miles, right? Times are different.
Yeah.
Who was the guy? God, he was out of John Curtis, and he was a 300-pounder. They lined him up at a tight end. God, dog it. Of course.
Was that not Doug Plant? The
No,
only one I know was Doug Plancher. That played tight end.
Plancher was Calicut guy. He was a couple years behind me at Catholic.
Okay.
God dog it. Someone's gonna remember who it was. It was a John Curtis dude. He was he was an offensive lineman who they listed as a tight end. They put him in like 88 or 89 or something like that, and he just mauled.
Well, back in the day,
Dylan Gordon. Thank you, Hunt Palmer. Dylan Gordon is who I was thinking of.
He played with my brother. That was after me.
Yeah.
But yeah, back in the Les Miles days, we had a left tackle or a guard, an offensive lineman that was a second or third guy. They kept an extra jersey on the sideline for goal line.
God bless. I'm glad, Rich. I'm glad those days are over, man. We had some good times. We had some good times. So I'm glad those days are over, man.
Well, to me, it's just like it was a disrespect to the tight ends. We're like, hey, we felt like we could block. You don't need to bring in another tackle.
I mean, but you ain't 300 pounds, dog. I mean,
no.
For what Les wanted to accomplish, that was probably the best path, the path of least resistance. Richard Dickson's our guest. Let me ask about the two young guys. So let's start with Pimpton because he's been there for 2 years. Brian Kelly's talked about him getting a little more physical. How do you carve out a role for Ka'morreun Pimpton on this team?
He's going to have to be a guy. I mean, I know, look, the biggest thing about Brian Kelly coming here, I knew they were going to play a bunch of tight ends. And Pimpton, when you watch him in film, he's got the size. I mean, I think he's a 6'4", 6'5" guy, 240 to 250, whatever it is. But he's got the frame to be a guy. At this point, it's got to be a coaching standpoint. It's got to be in the locker room. It's got to be in the film room. It's a mindset. I mean, because you're going to have the strength, the ability, the size to block every DN. It's not the old days where the DNs are I played with Tyson Jackson, Ricky Jean. They were 285, 290 DNs. Now, you're looking at 255, 260. These guys are the right size. But I think Pimpton has everything he needs. He just got to work on his mindset and want to be the blocker and not be just a pass-catching tight end.
Let me flip it over then to Trey'Dez Green. You say you saw him play at Zachary last year as a receiver. I mean, Rich, like literally the first practice of fall camp when we went out there, I mean, he stole the show. Just this freakish ability.
He's a freak. He is 6'7", 6'8", whatever it is. I mean, he's 235, 240. He's a man amongst children. When I watched him play against Central, I watched him play against, I think it was Catholic maybe. I went to 3 games last year, and he lined out wide. He ran a go route, and they gave him the ball. And that just speaks to his athletic ability. I mean, he's a guy that I think is going to be huge in short yardage situations, to where he's going to slide out the back and then the goal line, because he's a mismatch wherever he gets in the lineup. But he's not going to be a guy that I expect to run behind. If you're going to have to show a different look. You're going to have to show different looks where you're running the ball with him in there. But it's going to be very similar to was it Arik Gilbert?
Yeah.
When he came in the game, he was a backside cutoff. They weren't running that way.
Here's my biggest question, Rich. I think we've all had this conversation about Pimpton and Green, and we've said, okay, those dudes are a nightmare in the red zone. I mean, you get around the goal line, just throw them the ball, throw it up. But if you do that, Rich, who do you take off the field? Like, are you taking Kyron Lacey or C.J. Daniels or Mason Taylor off the field? That's the part where I'm like, I don't know how they get reps.
No, and you're not going to be able to do that unless one of them commit to blocking. And I think that's where it's Pimpton. Pimpton has the ability. They have to go in with a 2-tight situation, Mason Taylor and Pimpton, and be able to threaten them with a run game. If every time one of them come in the game, they know it's a pass, then you're taking an elite playmaker off the field. So I think, Mason Taylor, like I said, he's a B plus blocker. You need Pimpton to be a C plus, B minus guy, to where you can get behind him. You're not asking him to drive a guy drive the guy off the ball. You're asking him to get in the way. So if you have situations where they can both be in there, you're still comfortable running the ball, then it opens up the playbook to where you can get into that pass game.
Richard Dickson, former LSU tight end. You'll hear him on Eagle 98.1 Game Day post game all season long with Charles Hannegriff. Hey, man, a little birdie told me they're going to award the number 18 tonight. Are you still a part? Like, I know the 18 sometimes are part of it. Like, how does that? Are you part of that process to choose 18?
That's long gone. We ain't a part of the process anymore.
Oh,
you hear
really?
about it when you hear about it. Yeah, I mean, Les Miles kept it to where when you had Les Miles, Greg Stringfellow, Jack Murchie, everybody was involved. there was a text message going around. They would say who the people are up for. We'd look into it. It started that way with the first year with O, but by the end of it, we find out when y'all find out now.
Got it. You sound a little bummed. You bummed about that?
Yeah, it was a cool thing to be a part of it because I'm a football nerd. I still watch every media clip that's put out. I go to every practice I can. It was cool to have an input about it. We've seen it in certain situations where a coach uses it as leverage, but we just hope it keeps being true to the original format. I mean, it's the guy that's going to bust his ass, the guy that everybody trusts, the guy that knows how to deal with adversity, and it's the guy that everybody wants on the team. So we just hope it continues to keep that way.
All right. So if you were being asked for this year, given you know the team, who would you pick?
Ooh, I don't know the team like I usually do. I don't know if you know, I've been out of the loop. I had a bad car accident, broke my leg, been in a wheelchair. I'm just getting. I got released to walk last week, so I'm not getting out and about and hadn't been there. But selfishly, I'd Mason Taylor. Why not? I mean, he's a tight end. He's a guy that everybody likes. He's a hard worker. I've never heard a bad thing about him. He's a guy that dealt with injuries last year, dealt with adversity. To me, I'd love for him to wear it.
Richard Dickson, man. Sorry to hear about the wreck, man, and all the adversity that you faced. Hanny had just kind of filled me in maybe a few days ago. But I'm glad to hear you're on the mend, and I'm fired up to hear that you're going to be back on Eagle Game Day this year. So you know we love you around here, man. We're fired up to have you part of the team again this football season, man. We're excited for it all.
No doubt, man. I'm the most excited about this football season and doing radio than I ever been. Just get out the house.
I don't blame you, man. All right, dude. We'll keep in touch. Obviously, throughout football season, we're excited about it, man. It's right around the bend, and we appreciate a couple minutes today. All right.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.